Hello again, and thanks for listening to another episode of our little podcast we're doing here at the Lake Campus called Life at the Lake Campus. So it has been a series of interviews I've been conducting with students who have a different range of experiences that they've been going through as they try to navigate college life. Today, I'm going to be interviewing Daniel Perry. Dan is a second-year psychology student who has quite the different life story when it comes to college. So I chose Dan to give us a little bit of his background because he actually already has a degree. So, Dan, would you mind kind of explaining that a little bit first before we get into what you've been going on or what you've had going on here at the Lake Campus?
Yeah, so I graduated from high school in the ancient times, 2015.
Now you're making me feel old.
Yeah, and so I went to Huntington University. When I started my goal, I wanted to be a pastor. So I majored in Bible and ministry, which in Huntington were two different departments. But I graduated in 2019. Sort of by then I had sort of changed. I wanted to be a teacher at that point. So I wanted to be a professor, teach at college. Didn't really work out. I went to Duke for a semester. That was during COVID. So it didn't really work out. I didn't know what I was doing with online classes. They didn't know what they were doing with online classes because they'd always been strictly in person before. So I sort of didn't finish there, started working fast food. And after a few years, decided I wanted to do something else. So then I came here.
All right. So I know you said you work in fast food. You manage a Taco Bell and one of the local Taco Bells. How do you make that work-life balance kind of work out? Because you told me before you work 40 hours a week, and that just seems like a lot to kind of do alongside a full-time course load. So are there any strategies you kind of take, or how does that all work out for you?
I would say the biggest thing is my working fast food is very flexible. So the semesters when I knew I have all these assignments due on Friday. Friday would be the night when I didn't have to go in until 10 or 11. It's I had all day. I had no classes, so I just knew Friday is the day that we're gonna do homework that day. It's been helpful for me a lot. Is that a lot of the assignments due at Lake Campus are either due Friday at 11:59 p.m. or Sunday at 11:59 p.m. So if I have to work during the day, then I still have the night to get my assignments done. Or if I know I'm not going to have something usually due on a work day or usually due the same day, so I'll have all day to do it, or I can plan ahead. Really using the syllabus is very helpful too. Knowing I have a big paper due in 3 weeks and I'm not going to have a lot of time, I should start working on that now. That helps a lot too.
All right, so how long then were you, how long of a time did you have between graduating from Huntington and then getting into fast food and then going to Lake Campus? What was that time like?
Right, so when I graduated from Huntington, I thought I wanted to take a year between going to grad school and graduating, because at the time I was very exhausted. I was just tired. I did not have a lot of motivation my senior year at Huntington. So I started at Taco Bell in that gap year. And so I've been at Taco Bell for, will be 5 years in the fall. And I was at Taco Bell for 3-ish years before I came back to school.
All right, so then what was it that led you to decide you wanted to go back to school? If it seems like you've been at Taco Bell for that long, you kind of were establishing yourself. What was it that made you decide, I'm going to change things up again?
Yeah. A lot of it was just I was sort of the theme is I was tired. I was kind of getting burnt out. I was working a lot more then, and at the time I was on salary, so I wasn't getting paid for the extra stuff I was doing. So there was that. But the biggest thing was I just wanted to do something that helped people. When I was a pastor, I wanted to help people. Right, that was my goal. I wanted to help people. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to teach people to sort of learn how the stuff they're studying would actually make a difference for them. And so when I was tired, I was also thinking to myself, what am I doing right now that helps people? And what I thought was I feel like what I'm doing that helps people is not the actual work I'm doing, but the relationship with the employees. Because a lot of them are kids. That was where. So I wanted to take that. This is the part of my job that I like. How do I learn to do that better?
That's awesome. I know you've mentioned that, or at least something along those lines before to me, and I thought that was really kind of an admirable thing to be able to take that and kind of run with that and get a degree that focuses on it. So since you're now in the psychology route here, what are your plans for the future once you do finish your bachelor's degree at the Lake?
Yeah, so my goal is to go into counseling. I would like to work with teenagers, which was funny because anyone who knew me up until probably up until Taco Bell, I would have told them I hate teenagers. Like, they're the worst people ever. I, I, I had to take a youth ministry class at Huntington, and it was horrible. I had to deal with teenagers. But then as I was working, I worked with them for years now, and I realized that they're usually my best employees. But
All right, so switching it up a little bit, are there any like similarities or differences that you've gotten to like highlight between here and Huntington, or maybe some other experiences that you've had friends go through at different campuses?
yeah. So if I start, one of the differences, because just like not as important, but one of the differences I've noticed is just here there's a lot less writing, and a lot more like objective things. So I take a lot more tests here, whereas at Huntington I took a lot fewer tests, but did a lot more papers and stuff like that. But the bigger thing, and I think this is more important, I had a friend who went to Ohio State, graduated from Ohio State, and he would always tell me like about his experience there, and it was very different than mine, because I know like he didn't know any of his professors, didn't really talk to them. If he needed something, then he had to go to the TA. Whereas I've been to two pretty small schools where like I knew all the professors very well. I've had both the psych professors like 4 times. I've had Michelle twice. And then like at Huntington, like I knew all the professors. I knew all their families. I had been to their houses. So it's just like the level of rapport you have with the professors is very different at a small school compared to a large school.
That's tended to be a theme that's popped up in all the interviews I've done so far. Is everybody kind of, we appreciate how tightly knit the community is around here, which I always tell people that's one of the things I love the most about working here is I actually get to know my students. Like you and I literally just came from having a pizza party down there with some other students and professors. So it's really fun that we can do stuff like that. And I know from being on the other side of things, I taught at larger universities as I was going through grad school, and I had classes of 250 students, and I only really knew 1 or 2 of them. So here I have classes of anywhere from 10 to 30 students, and I know most of them. So that is kind of I always say it's an endearing quality of the Lake campus. So one of the final things I always like to ask people before we kind of wrap things up is, given your experiences that you have now, is there any piece of advice that you would give to any students who are kind of either getting ready to come here or who are only in their first year or 2 here?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest advice I would give would be to people who, I don't know, I guess like this isn't as applicable to degrees like accounting or things like that are specifically training you to do one job. A lot of degrees aren't like that. They're not training you to do a specific job that you're then going to go out and find a job doing. What they're imparting you with are skills that you can use to a vast or a wide array of jobs. So when I went to Huntington, when I went here, I learned things like how to interpret information, how to communicate, how to think critically. I used just living on campus at Huntington. I learned how to get along with people and how to work and live in close proximity with 30 other people. So I have a degree in religion, but the skills I acquired in that degree are incredibly useful for me working at Taco Bell. I would not have done as well. I would not be doing as well as I do there without that degree. So but the advice I would give then is when you're taking these classes, when you're going through college, it's not all about the course content, but also just the skills that you're doing it. Think of it like they're training you. Your professors are training you to do a specific, or they're training you to acquire skills, not just trying to download content into your brain.
That was a great answer, and I'm so glad you said that because it's something I really try to emphasize in my classes too. It's like, yeah, there's content that you're supposed to learn, but at the same time, there's so many other things that are really kind of going on in classes and then just in college in general. So if there's anything else, you all good?
Yeah.
All right. Well, awesome job, Dan. Thank you so much for joining us today. And for everybody else, just like I always say, if there is anybody on campus you would like me to interview, or if you have any other questions that you feel like I'm missing, please send those emails to joshua.ricker@wright.edu. And if there's nothing else, I will talk to everybody with our next episode.